Tell me, my friend, are you a human being living on planet Earth right now? And are you tired of madness, incompetence, bad faith, stupidity, and low effort slop? And have you been fighting to ignore the cold, cruel claw of despair squeezing at your heart as if to wrench every last drop of joy and wonder from the world? Well, my friend, I have the antidote for you in the form of a Czech movie from 1971, a science fiction movie, but really we'll use that as the entrance point to a whole wonderful subgenre of science fiction. But our movie, let's start with that. It's called You Are a Widow, Sir, from 1971. It was directed and co-written by Václav Volíček, who was quite famous as a creator of comedies in Czechoslovakia. This is one of those, and the subgenre we're talking about is the Wacky Czech sci-fi comedy. I think I have talked a little bit about that subgenre on this channel. We certainly talked about, the wonderful world of Czech science fiction. They have post-apocalyptic movies. They have tons of supremely cool movies. But the Czechs have come up with, they came up like in the 70s, 60s and 70s with their own very unique twist on the science fiction comedy with movies like Who Wants to Kill Jesse, Gentlemen, I Killed Einstein, Adele Hasn't Eaten Yet, and A Nice Plate of Spinach. A few of these at least were directed by Mr. Volíček. So I've watched by now, I think this is the fourth one I've watched, and though there are some of them that I like more than others, they are truly wonderful and well worth your time. So we'll be talking about this one, but generally speaking, I'll be presenting you why these movies are so interesting, why they're so fun, and the twist that they bring to the whole science fiction comedy formula. So, what is the... What is the story of this one? So this will give you straight away an idea of what makes this subgenre so special. I will take out my glasses for this. Okay, so this is a simplified version of the plot, okay? So we are in an unspecified, probably fictional European country in a not too distant future, okay? And we have a king, but this is like a modern king, okay? So we have a king and his generals and his admirals, so his whole, general staff, essentially. So that's one of the set of characters. But we also have a young astrologer, you see, and he's our main character, really, and he's nervous, he stutters, and he's not very socially comfortable, but he's a fantastic, phenomenal astrologer. He's always right. And he has seen in the stars in his own chart that he will become a widow, not once but twice, and a female widow at that. So this can't be right, but he's talking to one of his friends who is a minor character who I won't even mention the friend here because, anyway, simplified version. Anyway, he's about to become a widow twice in the coming days. And incidentally, this will also mean that he will become a woman. And this guy, this astrologer, he's in love with a minor stage actress, a quite beautiful stage actress, who is engaged with one of the younger military leaders, who work with the king. one of those military leaders who are about to stage a coup, a military coup, which will start by assassinating the king. Now, why do they want to assassinate the king? Because this is established like in the opening scene, because the king has decided to abolish the army. Like, let's get rid of the whole shebang. And why? Because there was an incident, a terrible incident in the opening scene during a military parade where a visiting king from another country had his arm chopped off, during a failed military salute, essentially. And so they chopped off his arm, and he bled blue blood, incidentally, but that's just a normal thing that happens. And the king saw that. He was none too pleased that his friend, the king from the next door kingdom, had his arm chopped off. So they sew the arm back on. But yeah, let's just get rid of the army. Who needs an army nowadays? Anyway, so the army will be abolished in, let's say, 30 days, okay? So now, all the military leaders, they're not happy. They're about to lose their jobs, their pensions and all that stuff. So they need to get rid of the king before that happens, before the 30 days. So they need to assassinate the king. So yeah, they're in charge of the security of the king, but it's not so simple. Like, they need to make it look like something they were not involved with. So here's the plan they come up with. Remember, again, this is the simplified version of the plot. Okay, so the king, you see, he is engaged. He's also engaged, like the military officer. So the king is also engaged to an actress, a world-famous actress, who incidentally stars in the same play where the other actress, who is engaged with the military leader who is part of the plot, you see. So the king is also engaged to an actress who is in that play, but she's the leading actress. Like, she plays essentially like Cleopatra. And so the scientist, you see, because this is in the future, so science has evolved tremendously, the military leader, the leaders will find a woman serial killer. Now, I guess it could have been a guy, but they found a very good woman serial killer who might be a cannibal, but anyway, and she's, she has a boyfriend who's a gangster, but that's a small, okay. First of all, they will create a clone of the actress, you see, and they do that using a mix of plaster and veal. Pork also works, and they will transplant the brain of the serial killer into the clone of the actress, who looks like the king's fiancée, and then she, the fiancée, who is now the clone with the brain of the serial killer, will go in and kill the king, and that's how you do it. However, there is a complication, you see, because the astrologer, who is very good, well, he's so good that he also works for the king. So once he's seen his chart where he will become a widow, a woman and a widow, he also discovers that the stars have foretold that the king's life is in mortal danger. So the astrologer goes to see the king to warn him, and the king obviously is very concerned. So he asks his military leaders, who are the ones who are who are behind the nefarious plot. He asks them to come in so that they hear these this horrible information, so that they can prevent the assassination. But obviously, they want to do the opposite. They want to make sure that the assassination goes forth, so they kill the astrologer. Okay, and again, I'm skipping some stuff here. They kill the astrologer, but he is sent to the same morgue as the lady serial killer. Now, the doctors, when they receive the corpse of the poor astrologer, They are quite impressed with his his astrological skill, so they decide to keep his brain for scientific study, as you do, right? And so they take out the brain and they put the two brains, like the serial killer brain and the astrologer brain, in two boxes. Very, very young Frankenstein style, right? And so they put them in two, cylinders, and the lead doctor at the morgue, he tells his assistant, "Now, whatever you do, don't mix this up, okay? I have two brains. This is the woman's brain. We need to, send it to the cloning clinic, and this one to the university." But he messes it up. He gets confused. He's distracted. So there is a bit of confusion, and the astrologer's brain ends up being transplanted in the actress's cloned veal body, and he is sent to. Unknowingly, he is sent to kill the king because the officers still want the plan to go on, but obviously he doesn't know anything about it. And will he succeed? What will happen? Who will die? Who will live? Who will get cloned? You'll just have to watch it to find out. As I said, that's essentially the first 20 minutes, maybe the first 30 minutes, let's say, but that's basically like the first, this is the introduction. That's the setup. So from there, a bunch of situations arise, and here is where we'll go into the main qualities of the movie. Each quality I mentioned has a twist, a very unique, special flavor. The first quality of these movies, of which Sir, You're a Widow is a very cool representative, is that, they're movies, obviously, and they are very well made and directed. So it's interesting to compare with, for instance, the Italian comedies, which is another, national science fiction subgenre. Lots of countries have the comedy science fiction subgenre, and many of them, bring their own twist to it. But if you compare with the Italian comedies, though there are some high-end ones, like Omicron from the early 60s, and some very talented actors worked on them, and directors certainly. Very often they're still cheap, and they're some of them are rough. They're difficult to watch. But this is not that type of movie. This is closer to one of the French, Edouard Molinaro movies, like the sort of comedy you might find with Jacques Brel or a Pierre Richard movie, if you've seen those. So those very elaborate, very smart, but very well directed, big budget comedy movies with extremely intelligent plots and high-level actors and high-level directors doing excellent directing work and fantastic sets, great costumes, that whole thing. So that's what these movies are like. Obviously, they don't have huge budgets, so in terms of special effects, they can be a little bit rudimentary, but it's not distracting. Like in some of them, you can have like spaceships sometimes or rockets. So yeah, it looks cheap, but a little bit like a cartoon, if you like. But it's not, since these are comedies and they are kind of surreal, it kind of helps in that direction. It kind of it doesn't detract from the flavor. And generally speaking, these are, as I mentioned, high productions. I mentioned the directors, so Wacky Czech, who did this. As I mentioned, he did a lot of those. One of the other directors who made such comedies is Jindřich Polak. So if you're a fan of European science fiction movies, there's a good chance you're a fan of Jindřich Polak. I'm pretty sure he's the one who directed Ikari XB1, who is one of my all-time, which is one of my all-time favorite science fiction movies. I should do a video on that movie. Anyway, so he's another fantastic director. So usually that's what you have. You have very competent directors from a movie industry, like the Czech movie industry, which was itself very high caliber. And this is one of those high quality top level movies. I will mention a quick shout out to the cast. I won't name everybody because they have Czech names and my Czech is not so good, but we have to mention the main actress in this movie. She's named Eva Janzuchova. Again, made no attempt to replicate the way one is supposed to pronounce her name. She is essentially, from what I gather, a national treasure in Czechoslovakia. She played in a gazillion movies. She's in a ton of those science fiction comedies, including a few that I've already mentioned. And here she plays 4 roles. So she's pulling a sort of Peter Sellers, kind of deal here. And she's great. So yeah, she's not a national treasure for nothing. And it's really fun because now that I've seen a few, you actually start to recognize like the stable of actors, because many of the actors return from one movie to the other. So now I've seen quite a few actually, Czech movies. They have great actors and a ton of faces. If you watch a lot of those movies, you will recognize a ton of faces in this one, and it's super fun. It's like, oh, this guy, he's great, and this girl is great. So it's one of those situations. And Eva Janzuchova, this is her picture essentially. Like she plays because every time she's cloned or her brain is transplanted, she plays the other characters, so it's really cool. And the only other actress I mentioned, she's called Helena Yurishkova. Again, no idea how to pronounce her name. And she plays the serial killer. And she is what you would have to call a heavy-set woman. She's a rotund. But she's basically there for like 2 scenes, something like that, 2-3 scenes, because, her brain gets transplanted. So you only see her during like the first third or so of the movie. But she's so fantastically good. Like she exudes the joy of the cannibal serial killer. And so this naive character. And it's crazy, crazy because she's clinically insane, but also crazy as in a crazy comedy, like this crazy character. And she's just so charismatic and so, what's the word, unreserved. I mean, very often, in the movie picks up whatever the actor is thinking, right? So very often you can see actors in movies, you can see them acting. So, here she is the purest example of the opposite of that. Like she is pure joy and presence and expression and going with it. So she truly is a spectacle, like a wonder. She's really cool. I love her in that movie. I mentioned the budgets in the movie are great. The soundtracks of these movies are also often excellent. It's like the one with Spinach, another movie, but Nice Place of Minich. That one has a 2-sentence melody, like something like that. That's the earworm of all earworms. Like that, I still have that song in my head after like months of having seen that movie. So the soundtracks are, they're usually pretty good. They're not as good as, the Italian comedies certainly often have very good soundtracks, and the French comedies, Pierre Zidi, I think those are sort of movies, but they're very good. So anyway, that's sort of the movie. So you get the idea: very high production, very competent, and this is the opposite of AI low effort slop, because everybody here is hyper competent and hyper smart and talented and experienced. So this is like a gallery of dozens and dozens of accomplished human beings at the top of their craft doing their stuff. And what's the twist here? Well, it's a high level comedy, but it's also a lot of there's also a lot of lowbrow humor involved, and so very quickly this kind of gives it a bit of a Mel Brooks feel, because one of the characteristics of the Mel Brooks comedies, like the classic Mel Brooks comedies, is that they're super smart, but like they're highly vulgar, and they do both at the same time. And that's hard to pull off. And there's less vulgarity here, okay, than the Mel Brooks movie, but you still have kind of that flavor. And there's a surprising amount of nudity, including the full frontal nudity. So I'm always amazed when I watch these Eastern European movies, just how much full frontal nudity appears in them. Like, it's kind of odd. Anyway, so that's it. So now, first quality is they're hyper talented movies with fantastic casts, but they still have that raunchy Mel Brooks vulgar quality to them. There's a tinge of it in there. Anyway, second quality is these, and this is kind of like the heart of it actually. These movies secretly are classical comedies, like Aristophanes, Shakespeare comedies, okay, like Molière, Feydeau, that sort of comedy, So because when you think of it, this is really what makes these movies so special. What do we have in this movie, in these movies in general? Well, we have doubles and twins, and mixed identities, confused identities. You have brothers and sisters and friends, and everybody knows one of the other characters, and but you're not aware that this guy knows this girl. So it's kind of like the in Office Space, the conspiracy, board. It's sort of thing like that sort of a situation. We have sets of star-crossed lovers, often more than one. We have gender swaps. You have age swaps. So here, like spinach, nice plate of spinach. The entire movie is about age swaps essentially. But there's a limit of that here. But it's actually like old people playing young people, and women playing men, and vice versa. Yeah, mistaking identities, astonishing coincidences, like a ton, a never-ending stream of astonishing coincidences. Amnesia, obviously, you get a ton of that. People getting bonked on the head and forgetting who they are or remembering who they are. That sort of thing tends to happen. Elaborate plots. Conspiracies, there's a ton of that in these movies, like very, again, complicated plots, as I've hinted at the beginning of the movie, and also an element of social satire. So in particular, the way the politicians and the generals, but also like greedy people are presented. So that's all ultimately very classical, theatrical, like the theater, that sort of comedy. That's the register this movie is actually pulling from. That's what the movie is actually showing us. It's one of those comedies. It's a classical theater comedy in a sci-fi setting, and in considered from that angle, well, the vulgarity makes a ton of sense, because comedies have always been hugely vulgar. In fact, like, you know, scatologic and all that stuff and nudity, that goes straight back to Aristophanes once again. So all that plays into it. But the twist here is that the Czech movies, they also have a lot of dark humor. Okay, and so obviously here we have the serial killer and the hints of cannibalism. Well, actually, not to spoil it, but there is actually cannibalism in this movie. There's a whole sequence that centers around it. So that's not infrequent in these Czech movies. Usually, like the first one I watched was Tomorrow I Will Wake Up and Scald Myself with Tea. Quite a tongue twister, and that was the first one I watched, and I was really surprised by like the amount of death that you end up seeing on screen. Like the body count is very, very high, and it's kind of like it kind of has a almost like a Rick and Morty feel. Actually, I've never watched Rick and Morty, so but from what I gather, it kind of has a touch of that, like the very dark. It's very funny, but there's a huge chunk of darkness in there. So yeah, so murder, cannibalism, that sort of thing. That's our little twist. It's classical comedy, but with that kind of like more modern sensibility to it. And the third great quality is obviously the Czechs perfected the art and science of making a high budget, high production movie using classical comedy techniques, you know, but doing that with science fiction elements. That's the thing. Okay, so they presented to us using stuff like brain transplants and time travel and, you know, paradoxes, obviously, and space travel and all that stuff. And the twist here is that usually you will rarely encounter, you know, robots or aliens. Like there is at least one Czech comedy which features aliens. It's called A Great Plague of Melikov, but everybody in Czechoslovakia seems to think it's the worst movie ever made. It has the reputation of not being so good, and it's not really one of those comedies anyway. It's not one of those farces, which this is. Like Sir, You're a Widow is the Czech sci-fi classic farce. Okay, and yeah, so the twist is that they only use a few science fiction elements, but they play them to the hilt. And why do they use them? Because again, all they're really doing is making an ancient Greek comedy almost, or sort of like a Shakespeare comedy, like an Elizabethan, if you like, comedy or something like that, or a Feydeau comedy, but they're doing that using science fiction tropes, which is the cool thing. So yeah, we have body doubles, but it's because they've been cloned, and mistaken identities because the brains have been transplanted, and but they only pick the ones where you can easily do that. It's a trick, really. It's a gimmick, but it's a brilliant, brilliant gimmick. And the end effect is like watching a non-depressive Philip K. Dick. If Philip K. Dick had been a happy-go-lucky guy instead of highly depressed, this might be what he would have come up with, you know. So they're wonderful. There aren't that many of those movies. The main representatives, and you can dispute how much they're part of that specific current, or if they're just general comedies. But generally speaking, I would say these the main titles of our Czech goofy farce science fiction comedies are from 1966, Who Wants to Kill Jesse, which was directed by Wacky Czech, our director from today. Then Gentlemen, I Killed Einstein from 1970. 1971, You Are a Widow, Sir, so our movie for today. 1972, Miss Golem. 1977, there's a bunch of them in 1977. So 77, we have Adele Hasn't Eaten Yet, which is a plant, like a man-eating plant, like story. This is like the next one on my list, probably. Like Little Shop of Horrors, but it's in the 19th century with a sort of secret agent, like a Sherlock Holmes era secret agent, like Nick Carter, I think. Anyway, or something like. Anyway, one of those stories looks pretty cool. Nice Place of Spinach, which I've talked about, 1977. And the other one I mentioned from 1977, Tomorrow I Will Get Up and Scald Myself with Tea. As I mentioned, this is the first one I watched, and so far it's my favorite. I like that one the best for a variety of reasons. This one today, You Are a Widow, is really good. Nice Place of Spinach, I thought it was okay. And Gentlemen, I Killed Einstein, I didn't like as much, but I think it's because the subtitles were... I had bad subtitles. So the first half hour was super funny, and then after that it didn't work so much. But it's still all the qualities were there. It's just I think I couldn't find the gags, like the wordplay, if you like, funny because the subtitles were confusing anyway. So, and I didn't understand the story after a point. But if you get, I think there's probably a DVD out. Anyway, doesn't matter. You should watch all of these because they're all fun. This is the short version. This is the takeaway. These are movies which will bring back joy into your life. So because again, they're so creative. They're so funny, they're so exuberant, and I mentioned this with the AI slop thing. Yeah, no, like, this is people making an effort, you see? This is people putting all their heart into something and working together to make a goofy comedy, and it's awesome, it's fantastic, you know, so that has value. Yeah, so in conclusion, okay, okay, personal note here. It's been a while since I did one of those videos because as I alluded to in the introduction, well, I am a human being, pretty certain, and I live on Earth, and I am pretty tired of madness and incompetence, bad faith and stupidity. I've never had much of a taste for these things, but I've had enough of those. And low effort slop is like a nail in the coffin, right? And YouTube now is basically like a hollowed out shell. You know, I watched a video of those parasites and locusts, you know, which empty out the locusts and then they take control of the nervous system. So it's just a hollowed out shell and it looks alive, but inside it's this parasite. So this is what YouTube is like. This is what YouTube is now. So if you put effort in these videos, which even a quote unquote low effort, you know, video, like I don't intend on spending like an entire day editing this. I hope not. But even a low effort video like this takes a lot of effort. And right now, like these days, YouTube, they just bury you and they're just evil in 20 different ways. So I wasn't sure what to do, but I might have mentioned this in other videos. And I decided that I would post my videos for free on Patreon. So people who do, you know, pay to be on Patreon, which, you know, you're the coolest, so thanks. They get the videos early, but otherwise I will put them for free, and I might put some extra videos as a thank you for for like paying Patreons, but mainly I will put the videos for free on Patreon. I will probably put them on Odyssey or something like that. But I got some nice comments, you know, from the few people who do watch these videos, and that meant a lot, you know. So even if YouTube completely buries us, like most of us, and they're always trying to find ways to hurt you, this, like, the actual reality of being a YouTuber, right, is they're always screwing you over. Like, we're now living in oligarchies. This is the nightmare timeline. It won't last forever though, so take heart. But all this is why it took me such a long time to get back on YouTube. So if you're watching this on Patreon, hey, and you're one of the cool kids, you're all cool. But anyway, and if you're watching this on YouTube, well, now you know. So I'm on Patreon, I'm also on Blue Sky, it doesn't matter. But anyway, and why did I choose to do this? Well, first of all, I'll finish on that. Well, because a few of you were nice enough to send me some very encouraging comments. So that's one of the reasons. And the other is, as I mentioned, I am a human being on this planet, and I am tired of madness, incompetence, bad faith, and stupidity, and low effort slop. So my small contribution to mankind, at least as far as these videos are concerned, is I try not to do that, you know. Have fun, enjoy yourselves. Everything is doesn't appear that way, but underneath it, everything is peachy keen. Take care. See you soon. Keep watching the skies. Live long and prosper.